Hello everyone. In this video I would like to show you my Glacial Hammer Berserker. I wanted to make a Glacial Hammer build by using staves, and as I do with all my builds, I wanted to make something with fairly generic gear. I chose Hegemony's Era as my weapon because it's an incredibly cheap staff with a lot of attack speed, crit chance and damage. Glacial Hammer is not really known for amazing clear speed, but as you can see, the build is an absolute beast at clearing maps. We are able to have really good clear speed by using Awakened Ancestral Call and coupling it with the Glacial Hammer Threshold Jewel. Awakened Ancestral Call will make it so that our Glacial Hammer will target 3 additional nearby enemies, and the Threshold Jewel will make it so that our Glacial Hammer will do cold damage to surrounding enemies. Since we are converting 100% of our physical damage to cold damage, we can also make use of Herald of Ice as well. This makes it so that we can annihilate packs with a single click, and it's incredibly satisfying to do so, especially with some nice Herald of Ice MTX. Two-handed melee builds are usually not known for being the fastest as well, which is why I chose Berserker. Berserker will give us an insane amount of attack speed, which makes it so that we can leap around like crazy and then smash packs with a single Glacial Hammer. As I've said earlier, the build is an absolute beast at mapping. It has really solid damage. You can freeze pretty much any map boss and metamorph in the game. You can do endgame bosses as well, like I've killed most of the endgame bosses, and I will upload a video of me killing them. However, keep in mind that Glacial Hammer is like the most melee skill in the game, and as a Berserker it takes a bit of time to stack up your damage against bosses. So if you are looking for strictly something to farm bosses with, this build is probably not for you. Okay, so let's quickly go over the gear. For our weapon, we are using a Hegemony's Era. For the price of it, this is like an unbelievable staff. It has really good base attack speed, base crit chance, a lot of physical damage that we make use of because we are converting all of our physical damage to cold damage. It gives you +1 to maximum power charges, which is certainly nice because we are using an Assassin's Mark on hit ring. So you'll be able to generate power charges while mapping as well. So this staff is like an unbelievably cheap and strong option for the build. For our amulet, we are using a Pandemonious. As you can see, it gives you a lot of cold damage, cold resistances, cold resist penetration, which is amazing because we don't get a lot of resist reduction or penetration other places in the build. And then finally, it will make it so that you will blind enemies on hit, and blind is like a pretty good survivability boost. If you can't afford this, you can just go for a rare amulet with life, elemental damage to attacks, and then some resistances. For your helmet, just craft it yourself. Buy the base with the enchant, either this enchant or the Glacial Hammer damage enchant, and then craft it by using Frigid Fossils. Frigid Fossils will give you that nearby enemies have minus cold resistance mod, and on top of that you're looking for things like life and resistances. We are using a Belt of the Deceiver. It gives you some life, resistances, damage, and most importantly, it makes sure that nearby enemies are intimidated. Intimidate is like a 10% more damage multiplier, and since this is a very common item, you can also get some cool corruptions like implicits on this. So check out for those as well. For our rings, we are using a Mark of the Elder and then a shaped ring with the Assassin's Mark on hit affix. Mark of the Elder will give you a lot of cold damage to your attacks, and as you can imagine, it's amazing for the build. A lot of life and a lot of attack damage. You can use Abrasive Catalyst in here to improve the quality of the attack damage mod. And then your other ring will give you Assassin's Mark on hit. Assassin's Mark will generate power charges while you're mapping, and then give you a lot of damage against bosses. If you can get it, getting Intelligence in here will probably save you a point on the passive tree. So if you can afford it, look for that as well. If you can't afford the Assassin's Mark on hit ring, you can just go for any shaped base ring with life, resistances, and then maybe elemental damage to attacks. For your body armor, it's pretty straightforward. You're just looking for a lot of life and a lot of resistances. I think I paid 2 exalt for this. Things like this aren't too expensive at this point in the league. But yeah, just look for life and then resistances. Now for your gloves, this is pretty important. You're looking for life, resistances, and then an open prefix. Open prefix will mean that you can craft that mod, physical damage converted to cold damage. Our Glacial Hammer will have 60% conversion. The Threshold Jewel will give you 25% conversion. So we have the 15% remaining physical damage that we need to convert to cold. And this will make it so that you can convert all of your physical damage to cold damage. And finally, for your boots, you're looking for Tailwind boots with some life and resistances if you can afford it. You don't have to look for movement speed in here because while you're mapping, you will have a lot of attack speed and then you can leap slam around all the time. You don't have to actually move the character. One thing I would highly recommend is getting this enchant as well, the penetration enchant. Since we don't have a lot of resist reduction or penetration in the build, this enchant will give you a lot of damage against bosses, so I would definitely recommend getting this. So I guess that's it about the gear. Okay, so for flasks, Divine Life Flask of Staunching for the bleed removal, Diamond Flask of Heat for the freeze removal, Silver Flask of Burning for the curse removal. Wise Oak will give you a lot of resistance penetration, which is a lot of damage. Just make sure that your cold resistance is your highest resistance, because we are dealing fully cold damage. And then finally Taste of Fate for some extra damage and then a lot of physical damage mitigation. So that's all the flasks. Okay, so for gems, we are linking our Glacial Hammer with Fortify, add cold damage, Inspiration, elemental damage with attacks, and then finally Ancestral Call. Obviously, if you can't afford the Awakened gems, you can just go for like the regular ones. And then if you can't, you can also like swap out the Ancestral Call for Ruthless against big bosses, Conqueror, Cyrus, Uber Elder, whatever. Like you won't have to do this for map bosses and Metamorphs, so it's not like an annoying thing that you have to keep doing. The like damage will be just fine with the Ancestral Call while you're mapping. In my staff, I have the Wall Ancestral War Chief set up. Ancestral War Chief added cold damage, elemental focus, conk effect, ruthless, and then finally elemental damage with attacks. In my gloves, I have my auras, Herald of Ice, precision, hatred, and then finally enlighten for the reduced mana reservation. If you can't afford the level 4 enlighten, you can just go for like a level 3 one. And if your mana pool feels too bad, like you just keep running out of mana, you can like drop the levels on your precision, maybe use like a level 15 precision instead of a level 21. In our helm, we have the Leap Slam set up. Leap Slam, faster attacks, calling strike, and then finally blood magic. Blood magic is so that you don't like run out of mana when you're just sleeping around the map. And then finally in my boots, blood rage for some extra attack speed and frenzy charge generation while mapping. Frost bomb for like resist reduction, which is huge damage. Enduring cry will like generate endurance charges and also proc this, which I will talk about in a little bit. And then finally summon ice column for some extra crit chance and accuracy. So that's all the gems. Okay, so for passive tree, we are playing Berserker and taking aspect of Carnage, of course, for like an insane amount of damage. That first part, like the increased damage taken part, we have a lot of defensive mechanisms to counter that. Like we have Fortify in our main 6 link. We are using Taste of Fate for like a lot of physical damage mitigation. We're getting some armor from our gear. You will pretty much blind enemies all the time with this. And then since we are dealing a lot of cold damage, like you can pretty reliably freeze enemies as well. So the 10% increased damage taken doesn't really matter too much in the end. I am taking Warbringer as well. This gives you a lot of quality of life and then damage. That first part is super nice, that recover 25% of life or mana whenever you use a war cry. This will basically make your enduring cry a buffed up the hybrid flask. It will recover a lot of life and mana. And like you can use this all the time in boss fights and whatnot. It's super nice for like quality of life. This node will also give you a lot of attack speed and a chance to deal double damage. That chance to deal double damage is super nice because it will make it easier for you to like freeze monsters. And then finally I'm also taking these things. Blitz gives you a lot of attack speed, which makes the build feel a lot smoother. I didn't go for this route because this takes like too much time to ramp up against bosses at the beginning of maps, so I didn't really like the playstyle. But maybe you can go for this and drop these if you want, if you prefer that. Other than that, the tree is fairly typical. I will just let you take a look. I will also put Path of Building link in the description if you want to copy it from there. We are using like one threshold jewel, as I've mentioned earlier, the Glacial Hammer threshold jewel. This will give you a 25% like fist to cold conversion and a lot of area of effect while clearing maps. I didn't go for this because honestly I don't think it's worth it. Like for like 3 points. Enduring Cry already has like a really low cast time, so going for this is like kind of a waste. You can just go for like another jewel, and then if you manage to get accuracy on some of your gear, you can also like drop this stuff. When you're looking for jewels, there's a lot of things you can look for. Attack speed with staves, crit multi with cold skills, elemental skills, whatever. Please check the description for PoE.trade links with setup filters for jewels. You can just like click the link and go to PoE.trade. Anointment options, Tenacity is your best bet because this gives you some life and a lot of damage. But if you can't afford this, like this requires 2 golden oils. You can go for Heart of Ice. Where is it? Heart of Ice. Or just like go for Wrecking Ball right here. This will give you like attack speed and attack damage. Both are totally fine. And for your mana problems, take this like single node, the Leech node. This will basically fix your mana problems. So I guess that's it about the passive tree. For Pantheons, as always, go for Soul of Shikari for the poison immunity. This isn't really necessary because we already have the Enduring Cry with the Warbringer from the passive tree, so we have pretty much infinite sustain in boss fights, so you can maybe like swap out something else. And the big one is also up to you. You can go for whatever you want. Okay, so I think that's it about the character, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. I really appreciate all the supports, like all the subs, likes, whatever. You guys are like amazing. I stream on twitch.tv/urbourgle, so if you want to come chill with me, ask me some questions, feel free to stop by. I will include a leveling section at the end of this video as well. And the bossing video with this character will be up in a couple days, like the video where I kill endgame bosses. So stay tuned for that as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, so for leveling, as with any character, you can craft gloves like these. As you can see, gloves have no level requirement, and it gives you an insane amount of added damage. You can craft it by using metallic and then frigid fossils on a low item level base. This is item level 3. Kill Hilak a couple of times until you drop some gloves, and then use these fossils on the glove. Like something like this should be fairly easy to get. You can also go for these items that I'm about to show you. I will just hover over them. The corruption doesn't matter too much, so you can just like buy the base item. In terms of like skill wise, Glacial Hammer will be available from level 1, and then you can link it with Ancestral Call, added cold damage, elemental damage with attacks, inspiration, and then fortify as you level up. For like the passive tree, first things first, you want to just like rush for this and then get the threshold jewel in here, like the Glacial Hammer threshold jewel. After you get this stuff, you can go for like the staff nodes in here, get these staff nodes, rush for these staff nodes and get these two, like these staff nodes, I'm sorry, and then like go down here for this stuff and like the cold damage penetration maybe. Like the rest of the stuff doesn't matter too much. Just grab this threshold jewel, grab some of these like staff nodes, and then you can get like life and maybe some more damage as you wish, like as you're leveling. Doesn't matter too much. As always, feel free to ask me any questions you might have. Stop by the stream, write a comment on the YouTube video, whatever. Thank you guys so much once again. I'll see you in the next one.